The mother of my 2 kids is expecting a baby with someone else. My girl and I have been together for 5.5 years. We have 2 kids age 1 and 4. A couple years into our relationship, she cheated on me with this guy who was a friend of mine. At first she was so sorry and said she was just curious and begged for my forgiveness, and then she did it again and get caught. We split up, mostly her choice, and she continued seeing him. He's definitely a player and would never be exclusive to her. I don't know if she wanted that or not. Then she created Plenty of Fish account and was talking to several guys. I know she ended up hooking up with one guy and saw him several more times afterwards. We ended up getting back together after some time and moved to Florida. We lived there for a couple more years and I know she was being faithful. In fact, I trusted her so much I wouldn't care if she wanted to go to the club with her girlfriends. I got an awesome job and ended up moving to NYC and was paying $3,200 a month rent, which is a lot more than I was ever used to. We got a taste of the good life and I lost my job on my 1-year anniversary. I decided I couldn't afford the rent, so I left her and the kids in New York while I went back to Florida to be a business partner with a good friend of mine. I left her completely broke with our newly acquired roommate and little to no food or diapers, wipes, etc. Times were definitely tough and the whole plan was to go to Florida, make a quick buck and get my family down there ASAP. Her phone was even cut off while I was in Florida and I was talking to her via Facebook. For the boredom and lack of money she had, I expected her to hit me up all the time, but I could tell that wasn't the case. She was ignoring me and I noticed new guys hitting her up on Facebook. She ended up telling me her and her roommate met a couple guys who gave them some cigarettes and food. Later, she admitted to have sex with one of them one night. I was furious, and at the same time my job in Florida wasn't working out at all. I just wanted to get back to New York as quick as possible, and I know the girl I left her up there with from Florida, and she is definitely a party girl. My girl ended up going back to Maine instead and I eventually made it up there. She told me when I get up there she will explain everything because I had just been getting bits and pieces of the truth and hadn't had more than 5 minutes to really talk to her since I left for Florida a few weeks prior. Anyways, she picked me up from the airport and dropped me at a friend's house. After getting up there and expecting her to come cry in my arms for forgiveness, I was surprised that the first few days she ignored me. I then heard through the grapevine that someone seen her with the first guy she cheated on me with a few years ago. I was completely shocked, and although this obviously sounds like she's a lying, cheating, and nothing more, just keep in mind I'm only putting in the bad stuff and not mentioning all the amazing times and memories we had. She continued seeing him and would come visit me every once in a while, but she was spending a lot of time with him. I learned he recently had 2 kids with 2 different women and was waiting on a third. I actually kept running into him over and over again. My girl ended up saying she wanted to break up because she was sick of always depending on me and she wanted space to be able to make her own way with college and work. I was absolutely blown. I literally had no idea what the hell was going on and how we went from being a perfect couple in a beautiful apartment making $250K a year to her leaving me and me being flat broke. Then she once again created a Plenty of Fish account and talked to a bunch of black guys. She specifically looked up the other guy she had hooked up with and ended up getting his phone number. I had hacked into her profile, I know, and read the messages between her and this guy who she had hooked up with last time we split up. She wrote that she was so stupid for getting back with such a loser and she's back to square one and will never ever see me again and wanted to see him. I happened to read this the day after she had slept at my house and we had wild sex and had been ignoring his calls, so I told him this obviously. He said he was done with her, and he was. My girl ended up admitting to hooking up with him. So she continued to see the first guy. I know this is getting confusing, but I don't want to use any names, and said they didn't ever have sex. One time my son even told me he's seen him and he slept over. She told me they didn't hook up, blah blah blah. Eventually she started seeing more and more of me and less of him. He would hit her up and she would ignore him until she stopped answering him altogether. I got it out of her that they did have sex about 5 times. I already knew this, but I needed to have her say it. She definitely cheated on me in New York, and I'm not sure if she technically cheated on me or not with him. Meaning I don't know if she broke up with me first or not. Either way, it still felt like cheating. Somehow, I started to forgive her, and I understood that I definitely left her in a pretty bad position in NYC, and although it was definitely wrong, I sort of understood what or why it happened. I know for 100% fact she hasn't been seeing or talking to anyone but me for the last couple months, and even when this was the case, we didn't officially get back together for a while to make sure this is what we wanted. I understand that if you read this, my girl probably looks like a complete nasty and laying, and I probably look like some punk puppet of hers. Let me assure you, though, that is not the case. The kicker to the story is that about a month ago she found out she was pregnant, and I had sex with her one time around then, I think, and the other guy had sex with her about 5 times around then, I think. She said that the other guy wore a condom, number 2, but the first guy didn't. Believe it or not, I do trust her for the most part at the moment, and she will do literally anything for me. We have been financially struggling, and the initial plan was abortion, which I am typically against, but given the situation I thought it would be best. We ended up not being able to afford it at the surgery date and didn't get it done. She is now 16 weeks, and I was under the assumption that if we couldn't get it done, she would give the baby up for adoption. She just told me today that she wouldn't be able to go through with adoption, and 18 weeks is the cutoff for abortion. I know the baby is much more developed now, but that would definitely be my preference. I made it very clear to her that I wasn't gonna raise another guy's baby for several reasons. This baby would be half black, and no, I'm not a racist, but that kind of stands out and would be fairly obvious it's not mine. Also, I couldn't look the kid in the face every day and see a reminder of how dirty she did me with this one guy. Lastly, she told me if she had the baby she would never tell him that he got her pregnant, but we both live in a very small city together where everybody knows everybody, and I doubt that could remain a secret. Which means I get to spend the rest of my life seeing the person I hate more than anyone in the world, and so would she. I am at a complete loss here. I told her that if she kept the baby, I would leave her. We have gone to counseling, and she was very honest with me, and I do feel like we could have a good and honest relationship together. I feel like I need to stick to my guns, but the fact that we finally came to a great place in our relationship makes it so hard. I love her and the kids so much, but this is a little too much for me to bear. I understand how this looks, and yes, she has cheated on me now with 2 different guys and has been with 3 since we got together. She actually had only had sex with 3 guys before me. I think she would still do an abortion, but now it costs $600 and we only have 2 weeks before deadline with no appointments set yet. I would like some brutally honest advice, and don't know why I'm looking for the golden answer on the internet, but I have nowhere to turn. What should I do?